Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Roster Mania continues with a major announcement coming out yesterday from the Seattle Surge. Arcitys dropped off the starting roster and lots of reaction from the man himself to this decision. Looking to come back stronger in the future for sure, but when and where might his next opportunity actually lie? Who are they going to bring in instead, Seattle Surge? Of course, lots to talk about. Illy to return, although maybe that is still rather unlikely. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Maybe the Los Angeles Thieves need this man to step back into the ring as well, of course, also formerly of the Seattle Surge, and, well, Octane, as we full well know, not the biggest fan of the way that the Seattle Surge have made their decisions over the last few years, and maybe justifiably so. But before we get into that, we have to talk about the updates coming to the game. So Season 3 is coming soon, and we have some weapons, and we have some maps. The Moors and the Bow. These were two very popular weapons during Advanced Warfare. The Moors, of course, was the sniper rifle of choice that year with the thermal sight. Formal, among others, had some phenomenal clips that year, such as on Biolab, Detroit, and other great maps at the time. The Bow was the dominant force weapon, certainly at the start of the game. As time progressed, the ASM-1 was more viable. The HBR, of course, became technically viable towards the end of the game's life cycle, although some, don't want to believe that because nature pulled it out of chance, all that story. But the Bow was, I mean, man, this gun was so good, and it's going to be in the game in the relatively near future. Okay, Bow will arrive mid-season, so it's going to be mid-Major 3 qualifiers by the time the Bow arrives, and it will probably be gentleman's agreemented by the pros within about 30 minutes of the patch dropping. Like, I just don't imagine that we're going to play with this, unfortunately, so that is one side of the discussion. The other big point, though, is on the maps, because the maps have a better chance of making it into the game than the Bow does, I would say. Possibly also the game modes itself, because on April the 3rd, Capture the Flag is going to return to multiplayer. Now this year, they determined from an early stage it was going to be controlled. That wasn't going to change. But we have discussed it that CTF on these maps in this game could be a better game mode. I don't know if it would be a better game mode. My personal feeling is that with CTF there was, there's a bit of rose-tinted glasses going on, because I would say 1 in 10 CTF maps was like fantastic and great COD to watch. The other 9 were usually very dull, and unless the maps that they play on are really good and well designed for it, it can be a pretty dull mode. I'm not convinced that it would be better than Control if you just threw it in, but it's something that I think would be at least worth considering. Unfortunately, mid-season, it's very doubtful that this actually happens, but at least it's kind of cool that it's happening. This, of course, is, by the way, Grind, if you guys remember this map from originally it was a DLC map in Black Ops 2, and then brought back, I think, in Black Ops 4, which I'm pretty sure is what is going on exactly here. But we do have other maps in the game soon, and these are certainly worthy of discussion. So there are 4 new maps arriving on April the 3rd. This is, can you believe it, actually quite good timing, because there will be, roughly 8-9 days for the pros to practice these maps before the matches get back underway. And some of these maps actually look viable, and even if they're not viable, or at least let's say they're similarly viable to the maps we presently have, they look way more fun to watch and to probably play as well. So there's a few ones here that are worthy of note. There's Emergency, which, I don't know, this looks relatively small. A few of these I don't particularly think are viable, such as Grow House. Tanked could be. I'll just bring this up on the screen here, of course. Well, kind of aquarium vibes here from Black Ops 3. Because, I mean, that basically is what it is. But, yeah, if you look at the map overview, I don't really know about this one. The one that I think people are really happy about or looking forward to is 6 Star. Before we get to that, I'll just show you Grime. This is a map here set in London. This is coming mid-season, though. And that means that by the time this arrives into the game, the qualifiers will be well underway. Potentially, they could put this map into the pool for Major 4 and beyonds, but I don't know, it's going to be tough. This, I'm sure, is giving many of you guys London Docks vibes, right? Not just in terms of what it is and where it is, but also the layout of the map itself has some similarity, some symmetry. This map, to me, looks pretty good from the overview, but I don't know if it's going to be there in time, and maybe it's not going to be good. But I think that it's undeniable the developers putting together these maps recently are taking inspiration from older COD maps that actually played well and trying to find, new viable alternatives to the way to lay out a map. And that is definitely true here with 6 Star. You've got to commend it, really, just because you know, they've put maps like Vista and Rio into the game, and Departures as well. A lot of people really want that in the game right now instead of, you know, Invasion. I don't want to ever watch Invasion again, and I don't want to play it ever again. It's probably not the worst map in the pool, but it's just so painful to watch for me that I just wish it was gone. And even if 6-star is equally viable and the spawns are equally terrible to Invasion, it should be in the pool just because it looks pretty. Like, I genuinely think that's part of the reality, but almost certainly it'll play better, right? So this map reminded many immediately of Raids, and for very good reason, because this pool side of the map is very similar to how Raids looked in Black Ops 2. This would be your tiki hut, this would be your stairs down to the water, this would be over to your kind of a top bedroom building. Okay, slightly different layout, but worthy to look at, right? Because this map overview has many Raid similarities. There's a few other things as well, like even this bottom right corner kind of reminds me of Retreat, which is an Advanced Warfare map. There was also, I think this part here reminded many of Plaza, which is a Black Ops 2 map from back in the day. So it seems to me that the devs are taking inspiration from old maps, and it's great to see because they've brought loads of the old school MW2 maps back to this game. And okay, some of them like Karachi, they play okay, if not kind of well at times. Some of them don't play well for the modern gamers we have. The maps that have played well historically for the game modes that we play are the maps in Black Ops 2 and others that have this more traditional 3-lane design, with map layouts looking very similar to this. I think, honestly, imagine you rotated this like 180 degrees so it was upside down, then you could see it being Raid from the Raid overview, right? Like, this would be the pool side, this is the ring side, so, and there's a lot of other similarities as well. This, for example, was Raid from Black Ops 2, of course, it was also played in Black Ops Cold War. Ring, laundry, kitchen, money room, tiki hut, pool side, you know, basket. Obviously, all the good stuff from back in the day, top red, bottom red, art, people used to call it, whatever you wanted, zigzag, etc, etc. One of the, probably the greatest ever competitive COD map, and I think there's no denying that in the map layout, there are some severe similarities. People also compared this to like Terrace as well from Advanced Warfare, which I also kind of see, but I guess we won't fully know until we actually get our hands on the maps themselves. So who's going to determine what's going to happen here? There's been lots of discussion as to the pros complain all the time about the map set. Like, I think the coaches at the start of the season voted and said that they give the map set like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. So basically everyone agrees we need better maps in the game. They did put Rio in, to be fair to them. And I am hoping that given the timeline over the coming days, the pros can come to some sort of decision over Vista, Departures, and quite possibly 6-star as well, as Spinner spent this in the league. You remember last time they put in this, basically they put a restriction on the map changes just as the new maps came in, so they couldn't change them. But now they say, yeah, they're more than welcome to test the maps. He says, thankfully, we've got a bit of a break here for the next couple of weeks, which is nice that these all fall into the window. So hopefully the pros can actually deliver on this and, well, produce something of value. Just wanted to make this from Raxi, thought it was kind of crazy, really. Here we are on Vista with a very interesting out-of-the-map route here that I've not really seen anybody use before, with the return to combat area to hit the flank on this one. So that is quite the thing to do, worthy of consideration, certainly in ranked play right now, and potentially in actual pro play in the relatively near future. We've got to talk about Rostermania because Afro was dropped yesterday, benched technically by the Los Angeles Thieves. He's going to be joining Team War, so he's back in the UK, replacing Denzer on that team, straight back to challenges, and well, hopefully he can have a bit of a bounce back. The same will need to be true for Arcitys if he wants to turn around his career. Two-time world champion, multiple event winner, and phenomenal player from his debut in Infinite Warfare to his time on a United, of course, and then into FaZe and Atlanta FaZe as it was, dominating the Cold War season, winning the World Championship there, to add his second ring to the one that he won back in Black Ops 4 with the United team. But over the last couple of years, it's gone substantially downhill for Arcitys' career, and now, as he says, free agent, right? This is now official. It was confirmed shortly afterwards by the Seattle Surge themselves that, yeah, he's gone, and he's not just benched, he's just dropped straight up out of the team, and they've signed him, and now they've got rid of him. Today we say goodbye to Arcitys. Thanks for being a great teammate, and we appreciate everything you've done for the Surge. Best of luck moving forward. Now this, of course, is a matter of debate and controversy that we'll dive into here in a second, because he's had a difficult time. He was on the Atlanta FaZe team. They won everything in Cold War pretty much. They played 6 events. They won 4 of them, including champs. Next year, they made 4 finals. They lost all of the finals. They decided Arcitys was not the man to take them forward any further. They brought Slasher in. And that season, they did win an event, to be fair, with Slash when he played pretty well, especially towards the end of the year. Now they've got Drazah, they've won an event again. So I think their decision to move on from Arcitys wasn't, a bad one, all things considered. But coming off FaZe, and with the tenure and the legacy that Arcitys had, he walked into a very lucrative contract, we believe, on the Los Angeles Guerrillas. He probably had other options as well, but LAG at the time had the big money, so they were paying Arcitys the big bag. However, that relatively swiftly changed. The organization changed tack, and then Arcitys ends up out of there, and this year he's on the Seattle Surge. The whole plan was to team up with iLLeY as a duo, and, well, unfortunately, that hasn't really worked out. And now Arcitys is just dropped straight out of the team, right? And I think the general feeling is that as a player, Arcitys hasn't really, been himself in some ways. But, look, he hasn't been the player that he was back in the day. The feeling was certainly last year on the Los Angeles Guerrillas that it's not like he'd given up precisely, but not far off. And he didn't seem particularly motivated or committed or anything like this. And I think it's relatively clear after last season that those guys that team with him on Guerrillas weren't particularly keen to do so again, potentially. Of course, the entire roster blew it up, but that's just kind of my understanding. So here we are on the Seattle Surge. He also says, don't tweet this. I don't really know exactly what he means, right? Because at the end of the day, they have dropped him and he is out of the team. So as Arcitys says, finally felt I wanted this. Now I know I need it, right? So, yeah, it's like, I think if there was going to be a wake-up call for Arcitys in terms of turning his career around and really locking in, as it were, it probably should have happened by now, to be honest. Like, there have been signs over the last couple of years that he hasn't been playing anywhere near well enough to maintain his spot, and that kind of legacy from a couple of years ago when he was a great player, winning many championships on FaZe and United before that, that lasts for some time, but it only lasts for so long, right? A couple of underwhelming seasons, and those opportunities are swiftly going to dry up. He tweets this out as well. I think this might have been related to something on his stream, so I don't know if he's really trying to say here, like, I'm coming back now, I've got the hype again to run it back. It's like, if Arcitys was really going to turn his career around, I feel like we'd have seen evidence of that before now. But, I'm wishing him the best because he's a great guy. And I don't think anyone on like a personal level has any problems with Arcitys from that perspective. But I think it's quite clear that inside of the game, it wasn't working. Now, Arcitys actually tweets this at iLLeY. I'm not exactly sure what this is trying to mean. I don't really want to analyze it much more. But we know that they're meant to be a duo. So, I don't know, maybe Arcitys feel like the iLLeY situation was mishandled by the Seattle Surge and he'd have preferred them to still be at a team together, obviously. And it could have been a very different story if that situation with iLLeY was slightly different. But these are their numbers from the most recent major. Not pretty at all, of course. And it did feel to many that Arcitys was not playing for the win as much as he might have otherwise, tried to do. And really the only bright spot on this team was aBeZy's hill time and hardpoints and Hook's ability in search and destroy, because Hook's S&D was actually pretty damn good, especially in terms of first blood, right? Getting his ability to get first bloods was very commendable. So what are Surge going to do? Arcitys is gone. Where's his next step is another big question as well, because, having gone from Los Angeles Guerrillas to Surge, it's not going to be easy, I don't think, for Arcitys to walk back into the league, Maybe a couple of teams, but I don't imagine any team is going to go for Arcitys immediately, unless there's some players out there that still really rate him. But I think that's somewhat doubtful over the last couple of seasons. The feeling is, in terms of what's going to happen next, is that probably iLLeY is not going to return. It may happen. That kind of assumes that iLLeY is, whatever's going on with iLLeY, that he's either fine again, or if there was some sort of league suspension, that's now ended. We simply don't know the answer. iLLeY is still on Surge as an organization. It's still in his bio, I'm pretty sure. It's still in his Twitter header, but it doesn't seem like he's going to come back. The name that's being thrown around is Cobra. So it seems like this feeling of the Surge moving into this basically French-speaking team, because Rambo, of course, French-Canadian, aBeZy joined with aBeZy, and now Cobra coming in as well. And this seems to be what Ant from the Rotation is implying here, is that, yeah, Cobra into the Seattle Surge, and then he also says this, get ready to learn French at Hook. So it feels like they were effectively forming last year's aWOBABOBS team, which was aBeZy, aBeZy, Cobra, and Linz. But of course, Linz is on the Minnesota Rocker now. So effectively, it's like the aWOBABOBS, but arguably a bit worse with Hook on there. And it's going to be interesting how that dynamic is going to work. But apparently, that is the plan, to bring Cobra in, who I think they can, Cobra can basically run either role. They can mix things up there, really. But at least that might make aBeZy and aBeZy a bit more comfortable. There's also an argument to say that aBeZy just hasn't been it. And maybe if you're going to get rid of Arcitys, you've also got to get rid of aBeZy and find another option there. But yeah, Cobra in, then forming that kind of like basically French-speaking team with Hook is going to be really interesting. I have no idea whether it's going to work out for the best, but what I do know is that Seattle Surge have consistently made terrible decisions over the last couple of years, so I wonder if this one is going to be any different. But very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.